Hi, y'all. My name is Cydnee Sanders. I'm working with Atlas ABE in St. Paul, Minnesota to put together a series of videos that will address much needed conversations and professional development for adult education educators. We hope these videos will provide bite-sized professional development that you can watch and hopefully discuss with your colleagues. Even if you're doing these alone, you will be able to reflect on these topics. I'll talk more at the end about the accompanying discussion guide that you can use as additional resource. For our first video, our topic is why is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, important in adult education classrooms? If you already agree that DEI is important, then great. But given that many places in the United States are currently banning DEI, we wanted to make sure we start with why this work is so needed in our classrooms and our communities. In any of these topics, 10 to 15 minutes is not enough. So remember, the idea of this, or really our hope, is that these begin the conversations among educators. Then we will do what we can to present different ideas, resources, and solutions in bite-sized chunks. As I mentioned, this is one topic out of a series we'll be doing called Moving Equity Forward in Adult Education. Be sure to check out our other videos. So, since I'm a teacher, I thought a good place to start is an overview of our topic. Many of us like knowing what's coming. Let's take a look. Today we started with the welcome. Next, we'll do a community check-in, which is a question I will pose to y'all to think about before the topic continues. Then we will address what DEI is in case you're new to the topic and go over why DEI is important. After that, we'll begin the discussion on how to bring DEI into our classrooms. I'll give a possible starting place and then following videos will provide more ideas. Finally, we'll wrap up by briefly going over the accompanying discussion guide. So let's start with our community check-in. Today's question is, what is one thing you enjoy about working with adult learners? Feel free to pause the video for a minute to think about this. If you're watching with others, take a moment and talk about your answers. All right, great. If you paused, welcome back. So I've asked this question to a lot of educators and I hear one answer more than any other. More often than not, educators say they love learning about different cultures and backgrounds, especially because I work with a lot of English teachers. They love meeting people from all over the world. They love the time they get to learn about customs and sharing food together. Even with American-born learners, there's so much we can learn about their cultures, experiences, and goals. And you cannot assume American-born students have the same culture as you. The United States, Minnesota, is made up of many cultures, many backgrounds, races, beliefs, abilities, socioeconomic statuses, definitions of family, the list goes on. I want to emphasize that this is what DEI is about, making space for other cultures in your classroom, not just basing everything on your own culture. For me, I agree. I got into teaching adults because I love learning about their cultures and experiences. I also unexpectedly realized how much joy there can be in level 1 English classes I teach. The amount of humor we can express to each other while only speaking a couple words of each other's languages to me is one of the most beautiful parts of human connection. All right, let's move on to our next questions. Let's make sure we all understand what I mean by DEI and why it's important to bring this into our adult education context. I want to start by saying that DEI are the terms that our field uses right now, but they are not enough. I really like this quote to help explain why. Diversity asks, who's in the room? Equity responds, who is trying to get in the room but can't? Whose presence in the room is under constant threat of erasure? Inclusion asks, has everyone's ideas been heard? Justice responds, whose ideas won't be taken as seriously because they aren't in the majority? It's not enough to have people of color or people of different abilities in the room. We need to make sure everyone is genuinely heard and valued. We need justice. And for that, we need imagination to change systems. It's not enough to have good intentions or being a nice person. We have to incorporate justice in everything we do. After a lot of conversations with colleagues, I know many of us get stuck with really implementing DEI changes because we're afraid of making mistakes. We tell our learners it's okay to make mistakes, but why is it often not the same for ourselves? So part of examining our own biases include reflecting on what stops us from doing this work. I repeat 2 quotes to myself that I have found extremely helpful. First, Maya Angelou's quote. She says, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. I repeat this to myself all the time. It's okay to resist perfectionism and just try something. This work is a lifelong journey. I know I will make plenty of mistakes, but I have to keep trying. To reinforce this idea, I really like this quote by Bell Hooks. She says, "We cannot be scared of making mistakes. Otherwise, this work, justice, will never happen." When you need some encouragement, I recommend saying one or both of these quotes to yourself, or maybe writing it where you can see it every day. Another quote I really like that really hits home for me as to why I do this work and why I believe DEI is important in our classrooms is this quote by Trevor Noah. He said this in his book, Born a Crime, which I highly recommend, and was paraphrasing a famous quote by Nelson Mandela. Noah says, "When you make the effort to speak someone else's language, even if it's just basic phrases here and there, you are saying to them, I understand that you have a culture and an identity that exists beyond me. I see you as a human being." I was clearly able to connect my experience of my family losing our indigenous languages to why I wanted to teach English in a way that honors learners' cultural and linguistic backgrounds. It's not only about acknowledging someone's language, for example. That's just one example. There are other ways to show learners have a culture and identity beyond you. Above all else, I want to make sure the learners I teach know I see them as a human being. And the way to do that is through DEI, justice-centered teaching. As I said, there's many ways to bring learners' cultures and identities into the classroom. I really like this visual I got from a professor of mine. One teaching approach I like to use is culture responsive and sustaining teaching. There's a lot of different words or names for this. This is the one that I choose to use. I hope to talk about this concept in more detail in another video, but for now, I wanted to show this quickly. I think of CRST as an overarching umbrella that is about honoring all of learners' identities. Then we can narrow down into different identities like being a learner, but also acknowledging students have many life experiences that make them experts. We are teaching adults and shouldn't assume they're empty vessels. We can draw on their family experiences and their languages, just to name a few. I think all of this is part of DEI in the classroom. So, how do we do this? Let's talk about some suggested steps I've put together. The first step is self-awareness. You cannot change anything, learn, and improve if you don't first reflect on your current practices and where you can improve. This is the brainstorming phase. Think about what you already do. I'm sure you do many things that values learners' experiences, goals, and cultures. Sometimes we forget or don't realize we're already doing this. Then, as I said in later videos, I'll give more concrete examples to try. So to help with this brainstorming, here are a few reflection questions for you to think about. These will also be in the discussion guide, so you can take time to think about them. Ask yourself, 1, what can you do to learn more about learners' cultures, backgrounds, and goals? How can you discover more together with colleagues? 2, how can you learn about your own biases? 3, how can you reflect on your own culture? What is your culture? And how do you bring that into the classroom? Quick note, a lot of times I've heard, especially white teachers say, I don't have a culture, or white American teachers, right? I don't have a culture. So I encourage you to think more deeply of we all have culture. So what's your culture? Number 4, how often do learners get to share their own expertise in class? How often do they lead activities? 5, do your lesson plans, the content and visuals represent the population of your classes? And remember, don't stay in the reflection step. Just try something as long as you do a bit of action step by step. All right, that's it for our first bite-sized task. Don't forget to visit the discussion guide for the video to deepen your understanding of this episode's topic. The link to the discussion guide can be found in the description to the video on YouTube and also linked on the Atlas website. The discussion guide provides questions, activities, and resources to learn more. We have linked the PDF of the slides in the guide also for your notes. So you'll see that at the top of the guide. Additionally, for more resources, check out Atlas's Cultural Competency Library and the Minnesota ABE Connect newsletter. All right, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to watch the entire playlist, like and subscribe videos so you don't miss a video, and thanks for joining me, y'all. See y'all later.